The fluorescent lights hummed faintly in the long, polished hallway of the corporate headquarters. It was early morning, the time when the place was almost empty, except for the cleaning staff who worked quietly before the day's chaos began. Daniel Kahn pushed his mop bucket forward, the squeaky wheel echoing against the marble tiles. His black t-shirt stretched over his muscular arms, a pair of worn gloves covering his calloused hands. To most people, Daniel was invisible, just another janitor in a billion-dollar company. But to him, this job was more than sweeping floors. It was survival. Halfway down the corridor, he heard a soft sound. Not quite a voice, not quite a cry. It was high-pitched, like the coo of a bird. He paused, frowning, and then he saw her. A little girl, no older than 4, stood in the middle of the hallway, wearing a pink dress and holding a worn teddy bear by its arm. Her big brown eyes looked straight at him, wide with both curiosity and something else, something like fear. Daniel knelt down slowly, not wanting to scare her. "Hey there," he said gently, his voice low and warm. "What are you doing here so early?" No answer. The girl just tilted her head, studying him. She moved her lips, but no sound came out. Daniel noticed it immediately, not shyness, but silence. Her mouth opened as if forming words, yet nothing emerged. He tried again. "Are you lost?" She stepped closer, cautiously. Her tiny fingers reached out and touched the brim of the cap hanging from his belt loop. Then, almost shyly, she gave a small smile. Daniel smiled back. "That's my work cap. Wanna try it on?" She nodded. He placed it gently on her head, and for the first time, a giggle escaped her, silent but unmistakable in its joy. It was then he heard footsteps behind them. A woman in white pants and a crisp white shirt appeared at the far end of the hallway, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Her face was tense, and her eyes fixed on the child. "Lily!" the woman called, her tone urgent. The little girl flinched. Daniel noticed how her shoulders stiffened at the sound of the woman's voice. The woman reached them in seconds. "What are you doing here?" she said, looking down at Lily. Then she turned her eyes on Daniel, eyes that carried the sharpness of someone who was used to commanding respect. "Who are you?" "I'm the janitor," Daniel replied simply, straightening up. "She was just standing here. I think she might be lost." "She's not lost," the woman snapped, though her voice trembled slightly. She just likes to wander." She took Lily's hand firmly. Daniel noticed Lily's eyes. She kept looking at him, her tiny fingers curling slightly as if she didn't want to go. Before he could say anything, a deeper, more commanding voice rang from behind them. "What's going on here?" Daniel turned to see a man walking towards them. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored navy suit that looked more expensive than Daniel's monthly rent. His presence filled the hallway instantly. It was Michael Harrington, CEO of the company. Daniel had seen him once or twice from a distance, always surrounded by board members and assistants. When Michael's eyes fell on the little girl, his face softened in a way Daniel hadn't expected. He walked straight to her, kneeling down to her level. "Lily, what are you doing out here?" The girl didn't answer, just gave him a faint smile. "She still won't speak," the woman in white pants murmured, almost under her breath. Michael's jaw tightened. He looked at Daniel. "Were you talking to her?" Daniel nodded slowly. "She didn't say anything, but she seemed happy when I put this cap on her." Michael stared at him for a long moment, not in suspicion, but as if studying something deeper. Then, unexpectedly, his voice broke. "If you teach her to speak again," he paused, his throat tightening, "I'll give you everything I have." Daniel blinked, unsure he had heard correctly. "Sir, what?" "I mean it," Michael said, standing up straight, his gaze intense. "Money, a house, anything you want. Just make her talk again." The hallway was silent, except for the faint hum of the lights above. Daniel glanced between Michael, the woman, and the little girl still holding the cap. He had no idea why the billionaire CEO was making such an offer to a janitor. But he could see one thing clearly. Whatever had stolen Lily's voice had also stolen a part of Michael's soul. And for reasons Daniel couldn't yet explain, he wanted to help. Daniel couldn't shake Michael's words from his mind. If you teach her to speak again, I'll give you everything. It wasn't the promise of everything that stayed with him. It was the desperation in Michael's voice. He'd seen rich men before, even worked in their homes when he used to do part-time handyman jobs. They had power, confidence, control over every situation. But Michael Harrington had looked like a man on the edge of breaking. That night, Daniel sat in his small, dimly lit apartment, eating a bowl of instant noodles. The sound of rain pattering against the window seemed louder than usual. He kept replaying Lily's silent giggle in his head, the way her tiny shoulders relaxed when he put the cap on her, the sparkle in her eyes that disappeared the moment the woman in white pants appeared. Something was wrong, and Daniel had learned in life that silence could hide deeper wounds than words ever could. The next morning, he arrived at the headquarters earlier than usual. He wasn't sure what he was planning to do, but he found himself walking the same corridor where he'd first met Lily. And there she was. She sat cross-legged on the floor, the teddy bear in her lap. When she saw Daniel, her face lit up. She got to her feet and ran toward him, no hesitation this time. "Hey!" Daniel greeted softly, kneeling so he was at her height. "You up early again, huh?" She nodded, then tapped his glove, pointing to his cap hanging on his belt loop. Daniel chuckled. "You like this thing, don't you?" He placed it on her head again. She adjusted it with both hands, then looked at him as if waiting for something. "Okay," he said, thinking out loud. "Let's try something. Say cap." Her lips moved slowly. "CAP." No sound. She frowned, frustration flickering in her eyes. Daniel gave a reassuring smile. "It's okay. No rush." They sat together on the floor for a while, and Daniel noticed she kept glancing toward the far end of the hall, as if checking to make sure the woman from yesterday wasn't coming. Finally, Lily took his glove off his hand and began tracing something in his palm with her tiny finger. The letters were shaky, but Daniel understood. "Dan. You know my name?" Daniel asked, surprised. She nodded quickly, smiling. Before he could say more, Michael's voice echoed from behind them. "She wrote your name?" Daniel turned to see the CEO walking toward them. No suit jacket today, just a white shirt, sleeves rolled up. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a man who hadn't slept in days. "She's trying," Daniel said. "But she can't seem to push the sound out." Michael crouched next to Lily. "Sweetheart, remember what I told you? You're safe now." His voice trembled slightly, and Daniel caught it. The little girl lowered her gaze, clutching her teddy bear tighter. Michael stood and pulled Daniel aside. His eyes were red, like someone who'd cried in private. "She hasn't spoken in 9 months. Not a single word." Daniel's brow furrowed. "What happened?" Michael hesitated. For a moment it looked like he was about to answer, but then he shook his head. "Not here. Not now. But I'll tell you this, the doctors can't help her. Therapists can't reach her. For some reason, she responds to you." Daniel was silent for a moment, then said, "Maybe because I'm not trying to fix her like she's broken. I'm just here." Michael studied him as if weighing whether to trust him with more. Finally, he said quietly, "Meet me tonight. My house. I'll tell you everything. And maybe then you'll understand why I said what I did." That evening, Daniel took a bus across the city to the gated estate where Michael Harrington lived. Security guards at the entrance eyed him skeptically until Michael himself appeared and waved him in. The house was massive. Tall glass windows, white stone walls, and the kind of polished silence that made Daniel uneasy. Inside, Lily sat curled up on the living room couch, watching a muted cartoon. Michael led Daniel into his study, poured himself a drink, but didn't touch it. He stood by the window looking out into the rain. "Lily is my daughter," he began. She was bright, talkative, full of questions. "But last year there was an incident." His voice cracked on the last word. Daniel waited. Michael turned, his jaw tight. "She saw something no child should ever see. Something that—" He trailed off, gripping the edge of the desk. "That took her voice away, and I can't bring it back." Daniel's stomach tightened. What did she see? Michael closed his eyes. Her mother's death. The words hung in the air like lead. Outside the study, Lily had left the couch and was standing in the hallway, watching them. Her eyes moved from her father to Daniel, as if she sensed the weight of the conversation even without hearing it. Daniel crouched down and held out his hand. She walked to him slowly, her teddy bear dragging on the floor. He didn't know how or why, but in that moment, he made himself a silent promise. He would find a way to give this little girl her voice back. And somewhere deep inside, a part of him wondered if helping her would also heal a part of himself he had buried long ago. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. Michael's words echoed in his head. She saw something no child should ever see. By morning, he had decided that he wouldn't approach this like a doctor or therapist. He'd been through enough pain in his own life to know that sometimes, before a person could speak, they needed to feel safe enough to be heard. When he arrived at the headquarters, he was surprised to find Lily sitting in the same hallway again. Pink dress neatly pressed, teddy bear tucked under her arm. It was as if she had been waiting for him. "Morning, partner," Daniel greeted softly. She smiled faintly and pointed to his cap. Daniel chuckled. "Of course." He placed it on her head and then took out a small folded paper from his pocket. "I brought something for you." He opened it to reveal a simple drawing, a stick figure of a man in a cap holding hands with a little girl in a pink dress. Above them was a speech bubble. "This is you," he said, pointing to the girl. "And this is me. And here," he tapped the bubble, "is where you'll put the first word you say to me." Lily studied the paper for a long moment, then looked up at him with curious eyes. Over the next few days, Daniel built a routine with her. Every morning, before the offices filled, they'd sit in a quiet corner. Sometimes they'd play with crayons, sometimes with building blocks he brought from a thrift store, and sometimes they'd just sit on the floor and roll a rubber ball back and forth. He never pressured her to speak. Instead, he would say a word and let her mouth it silently, then give her a thumbs up. One morning, he said, "Ball." She mouthed it slowly, "B-all." "That's it," Daniel encouraged, grinning. "You're getting closer." She smiled, a real one this time, and threw the ball a little harder toward him, as if testing his reflexes. But Daniel couldn't ignore something he'd started to notice. Every time the woman in the white pant and shirt appeared, the same one from the first day, Lily's face would change. Her body would stiffen. Her smile would fade. She'd clutch her teddy bear like a shield. Daniel decided to ask Michael about it. That evening, he found Michael in his office, looking over some reports. "That woman," Daniel began. "The one who's always with Lily? Who is she?" Michael's eyes flickered, and for a moment, his jaw clenched. "That's Claire. She was my late wife's personal assistant. She's been helping take care of Lily since the incident." "Does Lily like her?" Daniel asked carefully. Michael hesitated. "I thought so." "Why?" Daniel shrugged. "Just noticed Lily shuts down when she's around." Michael exhaled slowly. "Daniel, I can't afford to question the only person who's been here since the worst day of our lives. But if you think—" He stopped himself, shaking his head. "Forget it. I'm just desperate to see Lily speak again." A week later, Daniel decided to try something new. He took a small wireless speaker from home and set it on the floor. When Lily arrived, he pressed play. A soft guitar melody filled the hallway, slow, gentle, almost like a lullaby. He sat across from her and began humming along, tapping the beat on the floor. Lily tilted her head, listening intently. "This song," Daniel said softly, "was one my mom used to hum when I couldn't sleep." Lily's eyes softened. She slid the teddy bear aside and began tapping the floor in the same rhythm. Daniel smiled. "Okay. This word is easy. Just la. Can you try?" She mouthed it, la. Daniel's heart leapt. It wasn't a sound yet, but her lips moved more confidently than before. Then something unexpected happened. Lily suddenly crawled to the speaker, pressed it to her ear, and whispered so softly Daniel almost thought he imagined it. "La." His chest tightened. He looked at her, but before he could say anything, footsteps echoed from behind. Claire's sharp heels. Lily froze, her small frame curling in on itself. She grabbed the teddy bear and moved back against the wall. Daniel's jaw tightened. He saw the change in her, and now he was certain. Claire was part of the reason Lily's voice had disappeared. That night, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, replaying the moment over and over. He knew enough to trust his instincts, and his instincts told him something was deeply wrong. If Lily was ever going to speak again, Daniel would need to find out what really happened the night her mother died, and why Claire's presence made her so afraid. And Daniel wasn't going to stop until he uncovered the truth. Daniel didn't tell Michael what he suspected about Claire. Not yet. He needed proof. For the next few days, he quietly observed. Claire was always around Lily, always controlling her movements, deciding when she would eat, where she would sit, even cutting off moments when Lily seemed happy. And then Daniel noticed something else. Whenever Claire whispered to Lily, she'd lean down close, too close, and Lily's shoulders would shrink as though she were being scolded or threatened. One Thursday morning, Daniel arrived earlier than usual and found Lily alone in the hallway, sitting against the wall with her teddy bear. She looked tired, her little dress rumpled. "Hey, kiddo," Daniel said gently, crouching beside her. "Rough night." She looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw a shimmer of tears in her eyes. She held out her teddy bear, as if offering it to him. Something she'd never done before. He took it carefully. "Thank you." Then she pointed to his cap. Daniel smiled. "All right, let's make a deal. You try one sound, and you can wear the cap the whole morning." Her lips pressed together, uncertainty flickering across her face. Then she mouthed it, "Duh." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "That's it. You're getting it." But before he could encourage her more, Claire's sharp voice cut through the hall. "Lily, come here now." The little girl flinched. Claire strode forward, her expression tight. "You're wasting her time," she told Daniel coldly. "She doesn't need your games. She needs someone who doesn't scare her," Daniel said evenly. Claire's eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth, Janitor." She took Lily's arm and began pulling her away. That was the moment Michael appeared from around the corner. He froze, watching as Lily resisted slightly, her small hand reaching out toward Daniel. "What's going on?" Michael demanded. Claire's face shifted into something softer. "Nothing. I was just taking her to breakfast." But Michael's eyes went to Lily, and he saw the silent plea in her gaze. That evening, Michael called Daniel to his house again. Lily was upstairs asleep. "I've been thinking about what you said," Michael began, his tone heavy, "about Claire, and how Lily shuts down around her." Daniel leaned forward. "You saw it today, didn't you?" Michael exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I did, and it made me remember something I didn't want to face. The night my wife died, Claire was the one who found Lily. She told me Lily was hiding under the bed. But now I wonder, what was she hiding from?" Daniel's voice was low. "I think Lily's afraid of her. And if she is, it means the trauma that took her voice might not be just from losing her mother." Michael's expression hardened. "Then we need to find out the truth." The next day, Daniel came prepared. He brought his phone and set it to record audio in his pocket. When he found Lily, Claire wasn't around. They sat on the floor, and Daniel whispered, "If I'm here, you're safe." She touched his glove again, tracing letters in his palm. Daniel's heart ached. "Do you want to tell me about her?" Lily's lips moved. He couldn't hear the words, but he knew she was trying. That's when Claire's heels clicked into the hallway. Daniel stood, keeping his distance, as Claire leaned down to Lily. "You remember what I told you?" she said in a low, sharp voice. "You don't talk about that night. Not ever. Or bad things will happen." Daniel felt his blood run cold. The phone in his pocket caught every word. That evening, Daniel went straight to Michael with the recording. When the audio played, Michael's face drained of color. She's been threatening my daughter this whole time." His hands clenched into fists. "All this time, I trusted her." He didn't hesitate. Claire was fired that night, security escorting her from the house. Michael filed a report with the police, determined to find out exactly what role she'd played the night of his wife's death. The very next morning, Daniel went to see Lily. She was sitting on the couch, teddy bear in her lap. But today, her shoulders were relaxed, and her eyes were brighter. Daniel knelt beside her. "Hey, partner, you're safe now. She's gone." Lily blinked, her lips parting. And then, in the softest, most fragile whisper, she said, "Daniel." The sound was barely there, but it was real. Daniel froze, his throat tightening. "That's me," he said, smiling through the sudden sting in his eyes. Michael, standing in the doorway, covered his mouth with his hand, tears spilling over. Lily reached out and took Daniel's cap, placing it on her own head. Then, for the first time in 9 months, she spoke a full word, shaky, but clear, "Daddy." Michael crossed the room in seconds, scooping her into his arms, his tears falling freely. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." Daniel stood quietly, watching the reunion, knowing that in helping Lily find her voice, he had also helped a father find his again. And though Michael had promised him everything, Daniel realized the reward he'd just received was worth far more.
Dear friend, if this story made you pause for even a moment, brought a tear to your eye, or stirred something deep inside your heart, then please give it a like and share. Maybe your one share becomes hope for someone else. And if you'd like to keep receiving stories that speak to the soul, don't forget to subscribe. It's the first step in our journey together. Oh, and please share your thoughts in the comments, because every word from you means the world to me. Thank you, truly, from the heart.